You're listening to the Cookbook Love podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 376.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. How's everybody doing today? As always, hope you are all doing well. Things are going great here in Kentucky. We had quite a snowy start to our week this week, but today the sun is out. It's 50 degrees. The snow is gone, and it's really kind of unusual to have a snowfall like that this time of November. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, working from home, doing my writing, spending time in my kitchen, and all the cozy feels related to having snow on the ground and not having anywhere to go. It's very fun, and embracing the season of the fall and heading into winter time. Of course, the holidays, cooking, shopping for ingredients, all the things that we talk about here on Cookbook Love podcast. I received a great piece of mail this week, a cookbook from a cookbook author that learned how and decided to publish based solely on what she learned from listening to the podcast. To me, that is the most amazing thing when we take information that we have and we make a conscious decision to say yes to a project that we want to do, and we do it with a valuable podcast like Cookbook Love. I think it's incredible what value and information is out there for us to use to make our lives better, to live a brighter, better future. And to me, what I've learned so much over the years is that a lot of it just boils down to a decision. And to let what we want, the desire to have that, whatever it is, be greater than fear. And it's not always desire for a thing that's greater than fear or desire to publish that's greater than fear. It's the desire for a deep feeling of love and appreciation that is always able to overcome fear. The things don't overcome it. The emotion that we feel in pursuit of that overcomes it. And I know that this author had a great love for her family, her grandmother, their recipes, and that love for that and the person of her grandmother overcame any fear that she had, and she did the thing. So maybe in the future I'll have her on the show, talk a little bit about this opportunity that people have to do the very same thing, and that we're often just limiting ourselves by letting fear be greater than the desire to feel love and appreciation for whatever it is that we want to share in a book. Okay, so today on the show, I'm excited to have another example of someone who learned about cookbooks and cookbook writing through a program of mine called Get Paid to Get Published. Her name is Michele Pettinger. She's a certified running coach, fitness nutrition specialist, and functional nutritional counselor. As the owner of P3 Running, Michele blends run coaching with nutrition education for athletes of all ages and helps them understand how food supports performance, recovery, and long-term well-being. But before we dive in, I do want to let you know that I have a free resource for you today. If you are a food, nutrition, or culinary pro and you want to share your expertise in a published cookbook, one thing a traditional publisher will want from you is your platform. What is your platform? And they're going to want you to tell them about your platform. Your platform is basically your visibility in the marketplace. So if you would like some guidance on what a platform is, why you should have one and some tips on building one, head on over to cookbookwritersacademy.com/platform. The link is in the show notes for a complimentary checklist and download all about building your author platform. Okay, so back to our conversation today with Michele Pettinger. In our episode today, we talk all about Michelle's journey from idea to publication of her brand new book, The Young Runner's Guide to Nutrition. Michele discusses with us very openly how she shaped her concept that connected her nutritional science background with workable recipes. She talks about why she wrote this book for young athletes, their parents, and coaches. She shares a lot about her writing process, the resources and people she leaned on, the systems that she built to help her stay organized, and she shares insights about building a platform and not letting social media metrics distract you from your mission. So whether you're a runner, a cook, a baker, an athlete, or an aspiring author, Michele's story is a powerful reminder that writing a book is a race built on one day, one habit, one recipe, and one chapter at a time. So without further delay, let's dive into this interview with Michele Pettinger. Hi, Michele. Welcome to the Cookbook Love podcast.
Hi, Maggie. Thanks so much for having me.
You're
this
welcome.
Is really exciting.
Yes, it's exciting to have you here for many reasons. But before we get started, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I'm Michele Pettinger, and I'm the founder of P3 Running, and we're a collective of coaches that specialize in run coaching and nutrition coaching. And we work with runners of all ages. And I am a lifelong runner myself. I went on my first run when I was 12 and grew up with running in the household. My dad was the high school track and cross country coach. And I found marathon running in my 20s. And then I ran my first ultra marathon when I was 40, and I'm still training and running in events and coaching.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about this a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
Running and exercise and what you do as a coach for people of all ages, not only related to running, but related to their nutrition. I'm curious about that and the kinds of things that people need help with.
So I've been coaching adult runners around nutrition since 2012. And a lot of it is strategic fueling around their workouts. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of times where we start. Like, what is your pre-run breakfast? How much time are you taking to let that digest? How long is the run? How much hydration are you taking with you? What and how often are you fueling during your run? And then also looking at, post-run, what fuel are you taking in to aid in recovery? So that's one piece. And then I also work with athletes that want to look at the big picture from, what am I doing throughout the entire day? What does it mean if I'm having a rest day? What does it mean if I have a heavy workout day, and helping them fine tune based on what their food likes and dislikes are and other dietary restrictions that they might have.
Yeah. When an adult decides they want to start running, is it important that they look at nutrition first, or are there other things they want to consider?
I think new to running, the first thing is a good pair of shoes, and going to a specialty run store to get fitted in the right shoe, and getting the right gear for your climate, and just getting out the door and moving. And then as they progress, once your runs become longer than a half hour, then nutrition definitely plays a role.
Yeah. And I think that it can be fine-tuned for sure. Like you said, a part of the whole strategy of running. But you make an important point that people that want to get up and move and run, getting out the door is probably one of the biggest barriers.
Yes, and it looks that the motivation looks different for everyone. I think that especially post-pandemic, that run communities are very popular right now, whether it's through your local running store or trail group. People really appreciate having that friend to meet on the road or the trails and have their social time, connection time with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, turn it into a social event. My daughter trained for a long run, and that's exactly what she did, and it did help her in terms of just accountability too for the length of the run they needed to do, the training they needed to do. She got to know people in the group, and I think also if you're running in a climate where it's seasonal and the daylight changes based on the seasons, I think she went through periods of time where it was maybe dark in the evening when they were running, or it was getting dark, and so that whole being with the group was something that I know was very valuable to her and probably to the success of her running. So I love that you are helping people do that. And I think that I've often heard that running is one thing that, other than getting out the door and getting the shoes, it is a pretty low barrier to entry for most people.
It is absolutely, and you can do it anywhere. That's like when we travel. I love that. I just as long as I've got one kit and a pair of running shoes in my suitcase, it's a wonderful place to explore a new
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Stay active while you're away from home or
So,
your normal routine.
yeah, that's great. That's great. So some of our listeners may be wondering why in the heck Michele is on the Cookbook Love podcast talking about running. But there's a reason. Your book, The Young Runner's Guide to Nutrition, has a connection to this podcast and us to each other. So I want you to maybe explain a little bit about that. And then we're going to dive into talking specifically about the book and its unfolding in its life. And I know you got a lot of great tips for people that want to write a book of their own. So tell us a little bit about the journey up from the idea to how you're here today.
Sure. So my idea for a cookbook probably started 10 years ago. And at that time, I was coaching adult runners, and I thought I want to write a cookbook to support them. But I really would get in the weeds of uh, because writing for the adult male or the adult female, it's such a broad audience, right? And at that time, I didn't have the tools to kind of narrow my focus, and so uh, it was something. The idea was there, but I didn't really know who and what it was going to be, and it would get put on the back burner. And then fast forward a few years, the pandemic hits, and I had an accident that took me away from running for a while. And with the extra time, the cookbook came back to forefront of mind, and I discovered the Cookbook Love podcast, and I started listening on my walks. And I was just, I took in uh, do you want to do traditional publishing or something hybrid or self-publish? Do I want to hire an agent? Recipe writing, all of it was there. And I kind of just let it start absorbing. And I wasn't in a hurry, so I was able to just kind of let it organically come to me what I wanted to do. It definitely inspired me to, yes, I want to like seriously start going down this road, and was also introduced to the Get Paid to Get Published program. And I thought, okay, this is a perfect time for me to dive into this and start exploring more. And that program was integral in me finding who I was writing for. And a few different things were happening. You were challenging us to narrow our focus. And so that was happening. My daughter she grew up playing club soccer, but she decided to change to running for her school. And initially, she was schooling from home during the pandemic. So I was seeing how she was eating before she'd leave for her afternoon run. And then I saw her transition back into school and the challenges that she had in fueling properly during a school day to support her run in the afternoon. That was happening. The coach of her team invited me for a nutrition talk, and I don't know if it was during that talk or right after I had that light bulb moment. Said this is who I want to write to and for. I want to give these kids a platform of tools from which they can launch into um, hopefully a healthy, long adult running career. And yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how I kind of came to concept.
Yeah. So what clicked for you then, or what changed once you realized that we truly can't write a book for everybody, that it was okay and it was safe, so to speak, to narrow that down to young runners? What happened as a result of that decision?
Everything started to flow.
Yeah.
The whole process became easier. And I, so then really once I narrowed, it was about starting to work on the proposal, right? And I was using your template for writing the proposal. In addition, I was looking at, I had kind of had my ideal publisher in mind. So I was also looking at what are their submission
Yeah.
guidelines? What are they going to be looking for? The competitive titles section, while at first it felt daunting, was also a really important part for me in getting my concept down because I really could see what was out there, how my book was different, what gaps there were, how I could fill those gaps. So I really enjoyed the whole proposal writing process, but I have to say that I had a really good uh, template to start from.
Yeah. And I think the competitive analysis part is important. And I often, we talk about this, that people are like, well, why should I write the book then if there's competition? I said, actually, that means that makes it more marketable. It's a marketable topic. It's a commercially viable topic if there's already books published. But the purpose of it is to position your book in that space. And so you choosing young runners and focusing on the young runners guide, I think it does a few things. First of all, it's not young soccer players. It's not, young basketball players. It was runners and young. I think what was the age range? Maybe, I guess
Uh,
high school,
ele-
late elementary school.
right, like 11 to 18, but
Yeah.
also into college.
Yeah.
My daughter's running in college now, and she cooks out of the book, and
Yeah. Yeah.
she has teammates that do. So, uh, I think that middle school and
Yeah.
upwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, that narrowing of it, things do start to flow, but you were able to position your book in that space. And then, all the things that go along with that, why you're a great person to write this book, why you want to write this book now, why it's relevant now, and then all the things about, what's in your book. So once you got your proposal written, what happened?
So I had kind of I had my top publisher in mind, and I had so Velo Press. I've had their books on my shelf uh, for years, and they're in the space that they're in the endurance running space, and I thought this is who I would love to publish the book. I had other publishers I was looking at too, but also because my first choice was to do traditional publishing and to not go through an agent. I also knew that Velo Press took unsolicited manuscripts. So the other publisher, I sent the proposal off to them first. It was almost like I needed to practice hitting send.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Sure.
I think I'm ready. I'm gonna hit send, see what happens. And I got a no from them. And I was like, okay, well, gonna send it off to Velo Press, and you get the email that they received it. And I think it was only 2 weeks later,
Nice.
I got an email that they wanted to publish the book.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. And I always say, in order to get one contract, we have to pitch at least one time. We can't sit on our ideas and sit on our proposals. They have to get out there. And it's so great that you had the courage to do that, not only once, but twice to get your deal, and that you were able to do it without an agent through knowing if you look at what they want you to send and you speak their language and send them what they want, it increases your chances greatly of getting the email back that says, send me more, or we'd love to work with you, or whatever the nature of that email was. So tell us a little bit about what happened then, because sometimes what happens when that email lands in our email box and then we're tasked with contract, writing a manuscript, a lot of other things have to unfold to get to the book. So let's talk a little bit about that part of your journey.
Sure. So, you're right that initially it was like getting the contract signed and then getting the deadlines in place, how much time I had to write the book.
How much time did they give you?
I had 8 months.
That's good. Yeah.
Or 6 to 8 months. It was March to October. So, so then my first assignment was the first chapter they wanted to see. I had, 3 to 4 weeks to produce that. And so I got that submitted. And then after the first chapter, I had the option of I could turn in a chapter at a time, or I could wait until the full manuscript was done. And initially I thought I would go chapter by chapter, but then the more I wrote, the more I realized that, okay, I'm in chapter 3 now, and I'm going to want to change this in chapter 1. And I'm really glad that I waited until I had the full manuscript until the next submission. Yeah. And also, I guess I can bring up recipe writing now, because the recipe piece felt daunting. So through your podcast, I was introduced to a woman, Cynthia Nims, author, and found out that we're actually neighbors. So, and she, I know does some consulting around recipe development and that sort of thing. So I just reached out to her, and we met, I think, over the phone. We had coffee, and she helped me produce my style guide, and just gave me tips on recipe writing and kind of just helped me start down that road. And I can't say enough how important that style guide was. Again, I didn't want to do it, but if I hadn't painstakingly gone through the process, when I got into the nitty gritty of the recipe writing and development, it would have been much harder to execute, because I did bring in 2 other recipe developers to help me. And one of those, she supported me in my nutrition business for a long time, wonderful cook. I knew exactly what I wanted, but I needed help with the development of that. And so I had 2 people that jumped in on, I kind of gave them projects that were in their expertise. Yeah. And so I had a style guide to share with them. This is how I want the recipe written to share with them.
Yeah, and that ensures with the style guide that, everything is consistent across the people on the team that are working on the recipes, how things are worded, the terminology you use, maybe brands that you use, brands that you don't use, because you want it all to be in your voice that is consistent throughout the book. So I think it's a really important tool. And now, Michele, for anything you do in the future, you always have that style guide now created. And you can, I don't know if you did, but you probably turned it in or gave it to your editor when they were going through the book. That way they knew, what you used from your perspective. You might have even had a style guide from the publisher, but then the 2 work together to create the finished product and to be a guide for the way things are from both perspectives.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's really important. Yeah. That's great.
Yes. And so the other piece to that were my recipe testers. Again, I believe it was Cynthia that helped me with my document that I sent to my testers, everything that I was looking for them to comment on.
Mm-hmm.
And, going through, having 4 or 5 testers testing all of the recipes was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it definitely is helpful in being sure that people get results in their kitchen that you're happy with and that they're happy with, especially knowing that, if they're young people doing this book, if their parents are helping them, that people can get good results with the information that you provided to them. So, what was it like managing all these different parts of the project, from the manuscript development to the recipe development? The testers are, things are going out and testing. I don't think photos in the book, um, illustrations, or
Yeah.
working with anybody else. What did that feel like as the
Right.
author from that perspective?
In best case scenario, maybe I would have had, photography with the recipes, but the style of book that the
Yeah.
publisher wanted it to be more on the edge, that educational side, then they didn't want to do they were just going with black and white. So I was willing to, give that
Yeah.
give that up.
And that fit the style of books that you were used to seeing them publish.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I think that's important to point out, because sometimes we do, in a certain space, have a publisher in mind, but the style of book that they publish is pretty much generally the style of book that they publish. And you do want to be sure that your book fits with that. And I've seen books similar to yours written in the health space, related to maybe blood pressure or preventing heart attacks. And it's a very similar type of thing. It's a more information heavy book with recipes in the book, not necessarily based on photos and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I thought, when I saw it, I thought it fit perfectly with the topic that you did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The index, I want to mention this because, you have to lean into the expertise of your editor and your publisher, but they didn't initially have the recipe index in there. And I pushed for that.
Yeah.
I said, we cannot have 52 plus recipes and not have an index.
100%. Did I tell you the line that Ethan from The Joy of Cooking always used to say? He said, you could have the meaning of life in your book, and if it's not in the index, no one's ever going to find it. And it's true. If you've got 52 recipes and it's not in your index, people won't be able to find them. Some people use the index as the way to enter the book, believe it or not. So 100%. I'm glad you advocated for yourself.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I think that brings up a good point. I mean, you can't be afraid to advocate either.
Right. And that's, if I were talking to another writer, aspiring writer, it's like, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
Because ultimately, in the end, who you're advocating for is your book user, the reader of the book, and you're advocating for the book and the quality of the book.
Right.
And we do want to keep those two groups, the book and the reader, in mind, because you want their experience of the book to be what you designed it to be in writing it, and to really be a tool that they can use to reach all the goals that you set forth in the book, strategically planning their practice, what they're eating. And then from a, parental perspective, like what you might look for if your son or daughter is, doing running, and what the risk might be, all the things that you set out to do. The index, I think, often even more than the table of contents, is the juicy part of the book. Yeah. Yeah. So I encourage people, if you're listening and you haven't really approached a book or a cookbook, book like Michelle's in that way, to start from the back and work your way forward. I think sometimes it's kind of fun to look at a book from that perspective and look at all the different categories in the index, and just see the breadth of knowledge that an index can really unfold for us.
Sure.
Yeah. So you turned in your manuscript, and they're working on the index, and
and then the editing, and then it's waiting,
Yeah.
waiting to get the red marks back.
Yep.
And then going through, I feel like we went through 2 rounds of editing.
Yep.
And
So let's talk about that process, because you've put your heart and soul, no pun intended, into creating this manuscript. You send it to them, they send it to the editor, and when you're right, when you get it back, it's called a red line copy. It's full of red marks. What was your first reaction in response to that?
It actually wasn't. I think I had worst case scenario in my mind, and it definitely wasn't worst case scenario. It was all, for the most part, it was everybody wants to produce the best product possible, right? So every red mark was meant for the best final product, and so I looked at it that way.
Yeah. And I think 2 rounds sounds about right. The first one is really probably the heavier one. The second one may be a little more fine tuning. Did you get to see it again once the book pages were designed, or was that part of the second one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then there's that day you have to you have to let it go.
You do. They say no more.
Right. Yeah. And so another interesting part of the writing process was that this was not planned but happened. And we ended up moving during the writing process. And I thought, there's no way I can be involved in this move and make sure I meet the deadline of this book. And so my husband and I talked, and I went on just like a 4-day writing retreat. It was like, it doesn't have to be expensive. I just need to be away from everything. And I got a studio 30 minutes from the house in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and locked myself in there and wrote, and then ended up doing that one more time before the end of the writing process. And when I write another book, I will do that too, just because it was the most productive and creative time, and something that worked really well for me. So I was happy to have learned that through the process.
That's great. And to go by yourself and lock yourself in, so to speak, is a courageous thing to do. But often, everybody's got different environments with which they thrive and write. Some people can write in the middle of complete, chaos, moving. That's like where they thrive. I've heard stories of moms writing books on legal pads, sitting at kids' swim practices, and that was their time to write.
Sure.
Especially meets swim practice. It's like, I know I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be indoors, so I'm just going to write then. People going on solo retreats, people just showing up daily at a quiet time of their day. And I think you bring up an important point, that we need to know what we need, and it's not always what other people have told us they need, but we can find the best way that we can be the most productive, especially at manuscript stage when you're under deadline and under contract to turn into them and meet the deadline that they've set forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you went on again then. Was that during the writing also, not the editing phase, right?
Yes, it was right before the turning in the final manuscript.
Did you go to the same place?
Editing. I went to the same town, different studio.
Did you pack some food, or did you cook, or what did you do for meals?
I brought my own food, and they all had at least a little mini fridge and toaster oven. And
did you run and write and nourish yourself, and that's what you did?
I did do some running.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. No, I think it's important. That's a good tip for people to know, that sitting in your house every day, getting out the notebook just might not be the answer. And in particular, if you're at a time, like you said, if you're moving, that you knew you had to get away, and communicating with people who are around you and your support team, so to speak. Here's what I need to get this book finished.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the systems you built. You said you built some systems for organizing your recipes, doing the research, versions of the
Right.
drafts. I think some of these things that we don't always talk about when we talk about writing a book that are so important for keeping track of what you're doing. So I'd love to hear what you built and what worked for you.
Right. So I used my Google Drive to organize everything, and I mentioned the style guide, but I had uh, lots of folders, right? So the first part of the book, there was a lot of scientific research that went into it. So I'd have my chapter on adolescent physiology, and with that, I'd have a folder on bone health and a folder for brain function, a folder for muscle development, and then the same for other chapters. For my recipes, I had uh, breakfast. I had a sweet folder and a savory folder. Um, I had a spreadsheet that I shared with my recipe developers, and it was, here's the recipe. What status is it? Is it in development? Is it ready to be tested? How many times has it been tested? Is it ready to sign off? And so we were all, checking those check boxes. And so, yeah, just it was a lot of folders within folders. And for me, the more, again, kind of narrow I had everything, because I could just search on, adolescent physiology, and then I have all my documents that related to that come up. And I was able to not be in the weeds of everything else.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. And did you write your manuscript in Google Docs, or did you use a Word or another piece of software?
I was working in Google
Yeah,
Docs and then, saving it to as a Word document
yeah, yeah,
for submission. Yeah.
yeah. One thing about Google Docs that is nice is it's in the cloud, so you can access it anywhere. Um,
Right.
and then you can save versions of it. You could even download a copy and email it to yourself if you're afraid you're going to lose it. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways, but Google Docs has helped people to be able to access it from different points. And, Microsoft Word now with 365, you can access it that same way also. Um, Not a
Okay.
subscription fee
Yeah.
with Google Docs. So, generally people use one or two of those things. Did they ask for the manuscript to be turned in a pretty basic format?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 I
I
think
think,
that's one thing
yeah,
that
my initial,
surprises so many people about writing a book is they're so focused on the design in the beginning.
right. Yeah. That doesn't,
No. And I understand that. And
double spaced Times New Roman.
100%. It's like a I always say it looks like a boring book report. The design is important, but from the very beginning for someone who wants to propose a book to a publisher, it is like the least of our concerns. Unless you're pitching yourself as the designer or as a photographer, it's really not of importance.
Mhm.
Isn't it true though, when we start a business or we do something new, like, oh, we got to get a design of a website, like the visual part of it is so important for us to get ready and to get going. And um, but for books, it's generally quite the opposite.
Right.
Yeah,
Quality of the content.
yeah, yeah. So other than taking
Yeah.
your retreats, and you knew that really helped, were there any other routines that you had that really helped you move forward with the project?
Um, Not that I can think of right now. I would say though that because I was still continuing, my business is happening, right? This
Yeah.
is happening on the side of, so continuing to prioritize my business and making sure that at the beginning of the week, my scheduling of client schedules or any nutrition coaching that I was doing, or that those things were done first.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you could work on the book around that. That's a great example of
Right.
someone then who managed, family, move, having a job, running a business, and still writing a book. It is possible to do. It's not that you don't have to
Yes.
juggle things, but it is certainly possible to do. And it's a finite
Yeah.
project because now you have the book published.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I was prepared for what the writing process would look like. I was not as prepared for post-publication.
Let's talk. Well, let's do this first. I would love for you
Okay.
to tell us a little bit about what's in the book
Okay,
for
sure.
people that might be listening. Maybe we'll walk through some of the chapters and what people can find, and then let's talk about the launch and the post publication.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as we've discussed, the book is really for the young runner. The first 4 chapters I wrote to the young runner, starting with adolescent physiology, really hoping to help them understand what's going on in their body during these developmental years and how their nutrition really needs to support that growth and development. And then what happens when they add on their sports and other extracurricular activities. And this is where, from the beginning of the book, I really tried to, I'm talking about their bone health and muscle development and different macronutrients and micronutrients that are important for those. And then I tie them to a recipe. The recipes are chapter 7, so they can start making that correlation. It's like, oh, if I want a high protein meal, this is where I might find it. This is why it's important.
Yeah.
And so then that goes into optimizing performance through nutrition. And that's really the chapter where I talk about macronutrients and micronutrients. And then we go from there into the strategic fueling, how to fuel around their workouts. What does a typical day in the life of a high schooler look like? How should I be eating for breakfast and lunch in order to fuel my afternoon practice or my weekend races? And then I couldn't write the book and not discuss nutrition challenges. We see a lot of stories in social media of young athletes struggling with body image, struggling with their relationship with food. And so I really wanted to make sure that the reader and the coaches and the parents were feeling supported around those nutrition challenges also.
Yeah.
And then I feel like if there's going to be strong youth running communities, that the coaches and the parents need to be involved too. And so the chapter for coaches is on integrating nutrition education into their program. And parents, they might have 3 kids and 3 different sports, and we don't live in a day and time where dinner is on the table at 5, and helping them with meal planning and how to get their kids involved in the kitchen, giving them ideas for how to cultivate those conversations, not necessarily around the dinner table, but in other ways that still involve um, bringing healthy nutrition habits into their home.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Sounds like you talked to all 3 groups then, the runners themselves, the coaches, and the parents.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great because it is a team, no pun intended, that they have to be able to work together and support each other to have the best result, especially if the young runner is competing and on a team, high school team, rather than just doing it recreationally.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How common is it to see teenagers pick up running if there is body image issues that are unfolding?
I think that can happen from a control aspect. I imagine it can that problem can already be there, and they might lean into running or another sport, or vice versa. They get into the sport and they get bombarded in their social media on thinking that they need to have a certain body type or look a certain way in order to be
accepted, belong.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that's great. So this is a wonderful resource to really, like you said, to empower them to be in the driver's seat a little bit related to their nutrition and their health, because you talk about optimizing their experience, and that they really can feel better and perform better through some simple things that they can do related to what they eat. It's incredible. And
Right.
taking care of their body for the long haul, which their body is the place that they have to live for the rest of their life, and how to maximize that as best as possible through, simple things that they can do in the kitchen. You're not talking about, complicated gels and hydration fluids. You're just talking about food.
Right. And I really wanted, thank you for saying, putting them in the driver's seat, because that was another goal,
Yeah.
was to help them gain that autonomy. And so the recipe chapter does have, things to keep in your refrigerator, things to keep in your pantry, spices. All of those lists are built off the recipes in the book. So
Yeah.
if they go to the recipe, hopefully they have most of those staples already in their home. And then also thinking about someone new to cooking, I have how to press tofu, how to wrap your burrito, how to
Yeah.
dress a chicken.
Yeah.
Just keeping that younger cook in mind.
Yeah. And you said your daughter actually has transitioned now to college, and she's probably able to use all of that now that she's on her own.
She is, and it's, in high school we would butt heads on nutrition and energy drinks and
Yeah.
those types of things. But they're watching, they're listening, and it's a joy now to see her taking everything that she took in while she was at home, and uh, cooking out of the book, and eating as she should as a college athlete.
Yeah, that's for sure. So let's talk about post publication. The book is
Yeah.
here, and we create this product in conjunction with the publisher, but a lot has to happen after the book comes out. And to its credit, it should, because we want to get it in the hands of the people that can use it. But let's talk a little bit about your experience with this part of writing a book.
So I had through my contract, I had a publicist for 12 weeks. And that work started, I would say, a month before the book came out. And um, so they were mostly reaching out to their contacts. I mean, they were helping with like press release, reaching out to their contacts in terms of um, getting me on podcasts, and getting me guest articles and publications. So that's for the 12 weeks, really the 8 weeks after the book came out, I I was really overwhelmed, because I didn't say no to any opportunity. And it was like, okay, I need this article by next week, or you're going to be on this podcast in 10 days. And it was it feels a little bit like a blur.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that there's anything someone can do? Like, now that you understand, like, the process of getting the book here, was there a lull prior to the release that you maybe could have done some things if you had known, or did you even have access to the publicist then?
I didn't have access to the publicist until right before the book came out.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, I didn't have a full understanding of what that 12 weeks was going to look like.
Right. So let's
And
imagine
part
you're
of that
doing
was,
it again. Like, what would you recommend somebody do?
if you know you're going to have access to a publicist, just get really clear with them on, okay, what is this going to look like? What type of opportunities are you maybe going to be sending my way? What can I do to be prepared for this?
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You feel like, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about just all the high schools and teams all over, everywhere that could use this kind of information. And I'm sure that in and of itself, it just starts to feel like overwhelming. It's true of people that eat and cook and use cookbooks. But in this particular case, because it's such a specific audience, it almost like makes the marketing of it seem like it's easier, but there's still just, I'm sure, such untapped connections with people.
there is. And, so I've been doing any marketing on my own now, and I have to take breaks
Yeah.
from it. and also trust in, just like a lot of parts of the book happened organically. It's like I have to trust the process of the marking of it happening organically.
There's a saying sometimes books have to find their audience too. Like, believe it or not, like, they're created, but people pick them up and start to use them. And sometimes things start to get picked up and spread word of mouth and person to person. And people are out there sharing your book now and you don't even know it.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Hope.
Yeah. I know. I think that's always our thought when we're writing a book. Like, that is our hope, but it is, I mean, it's true. It has to be true. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's, I as far as like post-publication too, I think that, so one thing I could touch on, and this is both like pre and post, is the social media piece, right? I already have my P3 running coach and personal Instagrams. And that's another thing that I took from your course, was not getting caught up in how many followers do I have. I just got really clear on, like, if you go to my Instagram, you know who I am and what my expertise is and why I'm qualified to write this book, so that if a publisher went there, they would see that. And post-publication, it's not getting caught up with, if I were giving advice to someone, don't get caught up with what other people are doing, because you're just going to lose your voice. Remind yourself of who you are, who you wrote the book for, and stay true to that, and don't worry about the other stuff.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of you have to put some blinders on sometimes.
Right.
And and really do stay true to it. So you have other books in mind? You don't have to reveal what they are, but do you think it's something you might want to do again?
I do. Yeah. That's one thing though that I'll think about the timing of. I now know I've been through it once. So, and you can't plan for unexpected life things, right? It's like I didn't plan to go through a move while I was writing the first one. But having an idea of like a season or time of life that may or may not be better for taking the time to write a book.
Right. So people maybe hear you say it took, I had the idea 10 years ago, but let's talk a little bit more specifically about the timeline. So you had the idea from the time you actually got the yes on, well, let's even back up a little bit more from that. Like, how long it maybe took you to write the proposal, and then from the time you got the deal until you had the book on your desk?
So the proposal was took a while because we moved states while I was writing the proposal. We moved from Seattle back to California. So that was, let's say I started the proposal in 2021. I'm guessing right now.
Yeah.
And then I submitted the proposal to the publisher in January of 2023. And submitted final manuscript, I believe it was September of 2023. And then the book launched on March 4th of 2024.
Yeah. So from the time they received your final manuscript, through all the editing, design, production, printing, distribution, that went from September to March.
Right.
And it was a little bit from the time you got your yes and submitted the proposal till when your manuscript was due was about 9 months. So it looks like 12, 15 months from proposal sent, submitted, book deal to publication. That's a pretty good timeline.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I don't know if photography, like in a cookbook, would slow it down. I don't think it would slow it down that much. I think it's just like it might add a week or two in terms of the actual time to do the photographs, the designer would already have the design laid out so that they just, lay the photos into the pages. So I wouldn't think it would take significantly longer for that. Printing for color books sometimes does take a little bit longer. They're typically an overseas print job. I don't know if you are familiar with where yours was printed, but sometimes a 2-color book doesn't take as long. But even at that,
Yeah.
it would be, let's say it went from January of 23 till maybe another 6 months on top of that. It would have been 18 months instead of 15 months. So
Right.
yeah, that's great. And here
Yeah.
it is. And now you got to do and experience the whole thing. And like I mentioned, I think it's amazing for people to know that people can have ideas for books. You can do this, you can write it, you can do this without an agent. I love agents if people want to have an agent. There's been a couple people, one of them might have been in the course around the time you were that went the agent route, and her book was published this past spring also. So it's really been very fun to start to see the fruits of the traditional publishing model. Self-publishing, we get the results quicker because we do it ourselves and we don't have to do proposal and all that kind of stuff. But so it's been great to see, and I wish you nothing but the best for the promotion of the book, and keep talking to people about it. And like you said, your personality lends itself to the kind of discussions that you want to have, and I think you probably have the belief that it'll all work out just exactly like it's supposed to.
It will. It will.
Yes. So one thing I like to ask my guests on the show as we're wrapping up is if you have a favorite cookbook and what that might be.
So I like getting this question, and it took me a bit to get to my answer, but it's not necessarily a cookbook, but I would have to say my mom's recipe cards.
Oh, sweet.
Because it's when I go to that card box that I'm reminded of, I'm of course reminded of her, but all the time and hours she spent in the kitchen cooking for us. What we did together mostly was to bake, and so everything I learned from her in how I bake and I cook today, and as I was thinking about the answer to this question, it struck me that subconsciously it was probably feeding my goal or my message in the book too, of different ways to connect in the kitchen with your child. And I have memories of us getting into deep conversations in the kitchen while we were baking together, because it felt like a safe place for me. It's kind of like, for my daughter, it was always like when we're driving in the car somewhere, right? It's like you're in this close space, but then you don't have to make eye contact if you don't want to. Same thing can happen in the kitchen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's amazing that in a kitchen with ingredients and people sharing time together, that kind of safe space can be created. And what a great memory to have, in addition to not just the recipes and the cards, but the memory of that. Now, does she handwrite things and put like actually her handwriting on the cards, or did she cut and paste recipes onto the cards as her handwriting?
Her handwriting.
Yeah, that's great. Very good. Well, that's a wonderful thing to have. So we will just remember your kind words about her and the work that she did in the kitchen and the time that you all connected there. So we'd love to be able to connect with you online. Michele, tell us the best way to do that.
So my website is p3running.com. My business Instagram is at p3runningcoach. And I also have a business Facebook page, P3 Running. Mm-hmm. So those are probably the best places to find me.
Very good. Yeah, I'll link to some of those here in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on the show. not only to tell us about the book and your success with that, but also to hear about your journey through this podcast to meeting people that helped you all along the way to write and publish The Young Runner's Guide to Nutrition. And good luck with everything. And thanks again for all your great tips and for writing such an amazing resource for our young runners.
Thank you. And with much gratitude to you
yes,
for what you're doing in the space.
Yes, you're welcome. And gratitude to you too for, it's kind of just fascinating about coaching. Like you coach runners. I coach people who are writing books. But the whole concept of being coached and being willing to be coached is something that I've always valued. You obviously maybe have valued it yourself, and you see the value in it for other people. And I think sometimes our coaching containers for people, you mentioned safe spaces. I do think it creates that for people to come into a space where they're working on a certain thing that we want to excel at or learn about, and to be able to explore that. Because people in your house or your kids or your husband at the time are probably like, they're not the sounding board that you need. And you have to grow and become like a new version of Michele to do this. And it's like, okay, what better place than with other people who are doing the same thing? And Absolutely. I'm sure it's true with running too. If someone wants to learn to run, be a better runner, get a running coach. I'm all for the coaching space. I think it's terrific. And it's a forward-facing, future-focused approach to growth, and it's always been very rewarding to participate in it and to offer it to other people. So it was great to meet you through that space, and I can imagine you feel the same way about your coaching clients as well.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And watching them grow and do new things. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, have a great afternoon. And thanks again for coming on the show, and best of luck and have fun with promoting your book.
Okay. Thank you. I look forward to staying in touch.
Yes.
Thanks, Maggie.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. Again, all the links can be found in the show notes at www.cookbooklove.co. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, please check out the free cookbook writing masterclass called How to Get Paid to Write a Cookbook. It is designed specifically for food or nutrition experts, and you can check that out at www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. So that's it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green, and until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.